find anything. So as Toni Morrison said, that when you want to read a book and you can't find it, then you have to be the one who write the book. So that's how the book came about. And I began writing it during the quarantine. So already had a lot of information on etiquette, and I thought that that would be the easiest subject that I could talk about and write about. And that's how the book came about. All right, any questions? Oh my God. I apologize for that.
That's okay. So how have young people responded to your book?
Well, I've had most response from parents and educators. And they said that they even enjoyed the book. And it has about 20 to 25 tips. And at the end of each tip, I give an exercise where they can either do a true or false, a fill in the blank, or multiple choice. So the parents said that they think that the book is needed. And I'm hoping that it will be a discussion between the parent and the child as far as what their feelings are, because you just can't give a book to a student and say, okay, read this book and you should know what self-confidence is and what manners is. So there's a lot of leeway that I leave open for them to make their choices.
Great. As you might imagine, individuals here have not had an opportunity to read the book, nor have I. Why don't you share a couple of those tips with us that are in the book that make it so impactful and why parents like it so well?
Sure. I begin by explaining where etiquette comes from, all right? And a lot of our boys in class feel like etiquette and manners is really for white people. And it kind of shocks me. And I'm going like, well, why is that? And they say, well, you know, being mannerable, that's not us. You know, we have to be strong. You have to have a particular swag and you don't apologize for everything. And I said, no, that's not how it started. So manners really started in Egypt. And it was started by a pharaoh who had his advisor come up with what they call Ptah instructions. And these instructions were how to deal with young boys, to help them to be quiet, to be mannerable, how to eat, and how to grow up as a young man. And the advisors were always older gentlemen who gave these instructions to the young boys. So I told them that if that's where manners started from, you are descendants from kings and queens. So there's no reason for you to believe that manners started with people who didn't look like us.
Absolutely.
So that's one chapter. So I have some other funny examples in the book. I explain about home etiquette, you know, how you need to be responsible in cleaning your own room, you know. So at the end of the chapter, after I explain that, I said, okay, so what's the best way to clean your room? Should you clean it twice a week? Should you clean it every other week? Or should you let your big sister clean it because she knows how to clean the room good? So of course, parents will say, no, you're not gonna let your big sister clean the room. But that needs to be a discussion, you know, well, why do I need to clean it every day? You know, I'm playing football, I'm on the debate team, I'm taking music lessons on Saturday and Sundays. So that should be a little leeway. Okay, well, here's how we'll work this then. So let's say we'll clean it every 3 or 4 days, all right? And at least pick up all your dirty clothes by the weekend. So that's good negotiation skills instead of just saying, clean your room, especially when we look at our room. Is our room clean?
That's a good point. That is a good point. What are some of the other points in your book that parents have found particularly helpful?
Well, I talk about social media. The way it is today now, kids, they really converse through social media. There's no more one-on-one, eye-to-eye contact. Back when we grew up, if we had a beef, we went over to that person's house or we saw them at school Ask them, why did they tell this rumor? You know, I didn't go out with him, or, you know, I saw you, or whatever the beef may be. But now it's gotten so that they get it on social media and they automatically hit send. And I tell them, before you hit send, you better read that, then delete it, because you can't take it back. Once it goes out into the cloud, it's there. Anybody can pull it up. And just because you deleted it doesn't mean that somebody saved it and will show it to others later. So I'm trying to get them into the habit of doing more one-on-one and not everything by social media to take out on the beef. So I give several examples as far as how to deal with that and how to deal with friends.
That's great. Well, we have a number of people out in our audience. Does anyone, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself or you can put the question in the chat. Certainly, as we know, working on etiquette with our young people is so different in this digital age. Respect for families is very different. Are there any other funny examples that you have in terms of stories that have come out of your book, or some of the lessons that you have in the book?
Well, I talk to our young men about health, and not just our physical health, but our hygiene. And every time I start talking about hygiene, they think that is the funniest thing, you know, because I tell them about how to wash particular parts on our body. And they just crack up laughing, you know. They also feel that if they touch themselves in a particular way, this may lessen them as a boy, you know, and they don't want to say that they're gay, you know, which has nothing to do with that. But I talk to them and saying, here's how you bathe properly. They don't want to hear, I know how to bathe. No. You have to move particular things to the side, and you really need to wash them. And also your feet. Just because you're in the shower does not mean that your feet are being clean. You have to clean between those toes. So talking about health and hygiene, they just can't hold the laughter.
Great. Well, why don't you tell us how to get this book? It sounds like something that it would be a benefit in the libraries of parents, especially as the holidays are coming up. It would be a great gift for individuals. And we also encourage our listeners that if you have book clubs, this may be a book that you may want to read, and invite Mr. Wingo to a book club experience. So Mr. Wingo, why don't you tell us about how individuals can get the book?
Yes, well, Danielle put my link in the chat box. So that's how you can order the book. I have a limited copy of bookmarkers and also an ink pen to go along with the book if you order from my link. If you ordered from Amazon, you will just get the book, all right? Mm-hmm. Danielle will also put the my email address if you would like for me to come to your school to speak, and also to bring books to sell. Danielle, can you show them a copy of what the book looks like, the cover of the book? If you can share your screen.
Yes, I will. One moment.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And how many chapters did you say are in the book?
They're probably around 25 to 26 chapters. Mm-hmm. And when I say chapters, I mean 2 to 3 pages, you know, mm-hmm. So the book is about 125 pages. And as I said, at the end of each tip that I'm giving, there's a brief exercise for them to take. And then there's several pages for them to take notes also in the book.
Well, this sounds very interesting. It sounds like a book that if you have Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts or church organizations that may be working with young men, that this would be a perfect book to share with youth leaders. There's a question in the chat. How much does the book cost, Mr. Wingo?
The book is $15 for right now. Okay. That includes the pen and the marker.
Fantastic.
And that's the cover of the book. Yes.
Great. So we still have a couple of minutes left. Mr. Wingo, are there any other points of the book, any other chapters or any other information that you might want to share with us? I think the whole idea of manners with our young people, but particularly with our young men, do you deal anything with dating or that sort of thing in terms of how young men should treat women and that sort of situation as well?
Yes, I have chapters covering about bullying, also about dating young ladies or just dating period, how to make friends. I deal about the LGBTQ community, how not to body shame or how not to talk about someone who likes people that's different than you are, and really how to be a friend. What is a friend and how do you make friends? So each of those are giving particular examples, but I'm hoping that the parents can read along with them or either read it separately and have a discussion on that because they will probably would like to change a little bit of it. So I'm not trying to preach in the book and say, this is what you have to do, but I'm giving particular examples as far as how they can get started.
Fantastic. And in the few minutes that we have left, why don't you, there's one question, interactions with parents. What do you say about dressing in different settings?
Yes, I give tips on dressing. Now, certain attire for young men, a lot of times they really don't have a suit, a full suit. So I tell them how to dress appropriately, at least in a collared shirt and slacks, and the difference between shoes and sneakers. Even though it's very popular to wear sneakers with suits, because I do it also. But then there are certain situations that you would want to wear dress shoes. So it is good for them to have a pair of dress shoes, at least one pair of black slacks and a white shirt and a dark tie. And they can use that on various occasions and don't have to have a multitude in their wardrobe because they are growing young men. And it'd be quite expensive to buy these expensive suits. And then within a year, they've outgrown it and you have to buy another.
Right, right. And I'm imagining that perhaps you have something in there about what is appropriate attire for given events, because for young people, they sometimes don't have that information.
Yes, I tell them about dressing for funerals. Well, of course, we're going to ask our parents, but it's trying to be low key. Going to weddings, what should you wear at a wedding? If they can't afford a suit, then a proper sweater or vest along with the shirt. So I'm not trying to get them to spend a lot of money, but there are certain things that they can wear that they won't be an eyesore once they're in this social event. And even going to parties, sometimes they're invited out and they think wearing those same blue jeans and sneakers and a graphic t-shirt is going to be appropriate. But we really need to check in and find out what's the dress attire for this birthday party so that they won't be looked out of hand or anyway.
Got you. Well, we have just a few minutes left. I want to reach out to the wonderful attendees who have come to hear about this great book. If anyone has a question, they can either put it in the chat or you can take yourself off mute so that you can direct your question directly to Mr. Wingo. I don't see anything in the chat. This session, Anita Shepherd.
Thank you for a very interesting book, and I'm sure that it's needed. I'm thinking about it for my grandsons, But how do you approach the topic of young men and their perception of individuals who are members of the LGBTQ, how to help them to interact in a positive way?
Well, it's all about feelings and not hurting someone because they're of a different persuasion. So I try to tell them that they need friends also, and you need to be friends and to step up as a leader and not to be bullying or talking about people. So I'm not trying to say whether it's good or bad, but we need to all treat people humanly as possible. So I do that in my workshops. They need to cut the jokes out, and not to put the blame game out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And
Great.
thank you
Well,
for your question.
great. So we have 2 minutes before the all academic will shut down this session. So Mr. Wingo, we will let you close us out with a few last parting words on this book.
All right, I think it will be a wonderful asset to have my book. It's very inexpensive, and I'm pretty sure that your young men will keep this book for a long time with them to go back to, just to give them ideas, because I talk about conversations that when they go out to dinner, sometimes it's not just about the food. It's probably at a awards banquet, or they're being interviewed for a college or from a coach or from a job. And it's not about the food. They want to find out, how are you socially? Do you have any kind of manners? And even though I talk about place settings and everything, we all don't have a 10-piece place setting every time we eat. But I try to make them comfortable so that when they do go to these events, they won't feel like they're left out, that they're familiar with it and they're comfortable. And it's all about their confidence. So it's building their confidence up so that they can be mannerable.
Thank you so much.